let's talk about how you've been handling this Cleveland-Buffalo situation, Mike Palm.
Yeah, obviously the numbers moved down, and the total especially. Where I think we're at 8-42 right now. So this is another example of know your house rules. If you've already made a wager, whether it's over the counter or online, you need to know the house rules of your book regarding venue change. So at Circa, the rule is if the game is started more than 24 hours before or after the scheduled time that you made your bet, or the venue is moved more than 100 miles, it's void. It's a refund. So obviously if they moved it to Detroit, you're looking at a refund. It's more than 100 miles. And it should be, right, because that changes everything. It changes the conditions. It goes into a dome, and the crowd changes. So if you do, in this game, if you've made your bet at Circa and the game gets moved and it's played on Sunday, but it's played in Detroit, we'll repost it when we know. Obviously, you're going to know on Saturday probably, or even Friday. They're going to move the game. So we'll repost the new number with the new conditions, and you can bet back into it with the refund.
Mike,
Gotcha.
So how will you handle this for the contest? Will you just put a number there, assuming that, or will you hedge it so that if it goes to the dome or if it doesn't? I mean, because this could go either way in a this will be a huge contest play predicated on where the game's played. Mm-hmm. Because if it's played in the snow, people are going to jump the Browns and the points because it's going to be hard to score. If it's played in Detroit, people are going to jump the Bills because the Browns might not score.
We always, the guys in the back are great, and you use it as a cue of posting a line of where we think it's going to close, not what the line is on Thursday at 11 o'clock or 10:30. So, but you're not going to hedge it, right? You can't put it in between and then one way or the other. So you have to make the best guess scenario of where do you think the game's going to be. I would suggest they're probably going to close this thing around around 8.5 probably. Hedging a little bit if it goes to a dome, and then obviously Buffalo gets the advantage of the speed.
How about an overview, Mike, on Circa Millions and Survivor? Can we get a take on those two?
I'm more interested to focus on Survivor right now, Patrick, because it was just the first week of the third quarter of the Millions. That 80% hasn't really held up the last few weeks, right? So there's been a little bit of regression at the top, but come back to the field. I want to talk about Survivor, Michael, because outside of the pressing three, I wanted you to put your Survivor hat on, and I want to give you a scenario that's common amongst the 86 remaining entries. We went from 115 to 86. 10 were out on the Raiders, and I feel bad. Who knew Matt Ryan was starting? 10 out with the Eagles, 8 with the Bears, and 1 with the Saints. I have to tell you, I have no empathy for the 8 that were on the Bears because all of them, I went back and looked, had the Giants available. And I just think that's a mistake not to have used the Giants against Houston last week as opposed to the Bears against Detroit. I'm not trying to be a Thursday morning quarterback. So you have 86 remaining. I'm going to give you a scenario. You don't have Baltimore because Baltimore looks like as close to a free square this week as possible. If you don't have Baltimore but you have Buffalo, what's the best pathway to get through next Sunday? I would suggest it's saving Buffalo to use against Detroit on Thanksgiving and then come back with the Dolphins against the Texans next Sunday. But I'm going to give you 3 choices of teams, Michael, that are all 3-point favorites this week, and you tell me which one you would use in Survivor if you had all 3 available.
He's Monty Hall. Here comes Monty Palm.
Door number 1 is your Coach Belichick at home as a 3-point favorite to the Jets. Door number 2 is Brian Daboll and the Giants at home as a 3-point favorite against the Lions. And an interesting door number 3 is the Commodores, a 3-point favorite on the road against the Texans.
So I think I lean here Giants. I don't trust the Commodores down there. And let me explain why I don't trust them. Is because when you really go back and study the game on Monday night, a lot went in their way. They got 4 first downs by penalty in the game. They were able to control the ball for 41 minutes. And, the Eagle offense was only on the field 19 plays. They were able to have 21 third downs in the game, which kept the Eagles off the field. So I think when you watch the Giants play against Houston last week, Houston moved the ball, had 5 possessions in the second half. They could have scored on all 5. They turned the ball over on 2 of them with the fumble by Pierce and then the interception by Mills. I think the matchup on paper would favor Washington, and it's easy to go in that direction because this offensive line for Houston isn't very good. The Washington defensive front should put some pressure, but to me, every time I think Washington's going to turn a game around, they should have beaten Minnesota, a good team. They beat Philadelphia, a good team, so they should kill Houston. Heineke turns the ball over, and it makes you really worried about it. And can they block the Houston front? Can Leno block Jerry Hughes and not create a turnover? I think that's an interesting question to answer. I think the Lions were fortunate to win the game. I think the Lions got a lot of breaks. And just like the Washington football team got a lot of breaks. I think the Giants didn't play their best defensively. I think the Giants will attack Jared Goff. I'm not sure Goff's going to have his best game. I worry if DJ Chark plays in the game because I think that'll help the Lions offense. And he's practicing this week. But at the end of the day, I think the Giants will move the ball and control the ball against the Lions defense that's not very good. And they have enough ability to run it. And last week, my man Daniel Jones, he only had 4 incomplete passes. So I will take door number 2, Mike Palm.
It's interesting, Patrick. I agree. And I've had this question posed to me by 3 different people in Survivor for an advice, and I landed on the Giants in all 3. My main factor is it's Detroit on the road. Detroit on the road for 2 weeks in a row. And I think the Giants are very well coached. Patriots, to me, is an interesting option in that he has such a weapon in that, if he can get to the 35-yard line, he racks up 3 points every time. And Zach Wilson, I just think he's a small guy and he's tough to play in this league. Anyhow, Patrick, I heard you talking about the regression of the Cowboys defense. This is a prop I looked at because I think it's worth maybe a little dabble at the price. Cowboys not to make the playoffs at plus 950.
Cowboys not to make the postseason at plus 950. Wow.
Yeah.
If you dig through the numbers over the past 5-6 weeks defensively, they're a sieve. I mean, they've been bad.
I'll get into it a little bit in my pressing 3. One of the questions is tangent.
But let me ask you this, Mike. So if you like that prop, then you got to believe Washington's going to beat Houston.
I believe Washington will beat Houston. I also know that Washington plays very well against the Cowboys.
Right. So what I'm saying is they got the Washington schedule going forward. This is not the hardest game, but this is one of the games where if we trusted Rivera and trusted Heineke, we would easily say they should beat the Texans, right? And yet we know that they don't handle success very well because if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to beat Houston to make the playoffs because they're going to stub their toe one way around the road, right? They're not going to be able to run a table. They got to beat Houston this week. It's a playoff game for them.
I need 2 teams to get above Dallas, assuming the Giants stay above them. Out of these, I need Washington, Seattle, or Green Bay, right? 2 of those 3 to push their way past Dallas into the wild card to win that bet at plus 950.
If Tennessee beats Green Bay tonight, I think you're on your way. And then Green Bay's got Philadelphia, right? Green Bay has Philly after this game?
Correct.
Yep. And you should be 7-5 with the Commodores at Houston. Again, kind of a weird spot, but then they come back home and take on Atlanta. You should be sitting 7-5.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds. Listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.